In November of 2023, a junior associate at the law firm Sidley Austin wrote an open letter titled, "Dear U.S. Law Firms." Her law firm had just signed its own letter written to the deans of American law schools criticizing protests on college campuses against Israel's war in Gaza. This junior associate's letter excoriates her employer and dozens of other law firms for chilling free speech. She was fired for refusing to take her letter down. So this junior associate lawyer left New York, returned home to Denver, where she started working as a barista. Then she entered a PhD program in public policy and then decided to run for office. And on Tuesday, in the Democratic primary, she defeated her opponent, a 15-term incumbent who'd been in Congress longer than this former junior law associate has been alive. In the process, she's rocked the political establishment. Joining me now is Melat Kiros, the Democratic nominee for the House of Representatives in Colorado's 1st District. Congratulations. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
You've probably seen or heard all of the analysis. Everybody's talking about the race and what it means. So I want to ask you, how should Democrats, particularly Democrats in the House, be processing your win over their colleague on Tuesday?
I think this election was a referendum on the party and their ability to actually listen to the issues that the voters care most about. The voters of this district heard the case that we made about why affordability is so out of reach right now, why corruption is on the rise right now, and the role that our party needs to be playing in making sure that we are leading by example to make sure that we get money out of our politics so that we can finally get to the work of passing things like Medicare for All, universal child care, housing first, and putting an arms embargo on Israel.
So one of the things you talk about a lot is PAC money. You've said that you would not vote for a House Speaker who takes corporate PAC money. So I'm going down the list. You actually have to go a fair distance down Democratic leadership before you find somebody who doesn't take corporate PAC money. So on a very practical level, tell me how that works. You get elected, you go to Congress in January, and you're going to vote on a speaker. Tell me how this plays out with you and others like you who have toppled incumbents.
Well, I intend to make my case. I think what we showed here in Denver is that not only do you not need to take corporate PAC money in order to win, that you can actually dominate with the support of grassroots people-powered infrastructure. We had over 6,500 volunteers knocking on over 115,000 doors and making over 500,000 phone calls all across our district. And because of their incredible work, we were able to win with a 13-point margin. What we are showing right now is that not only is the money in our politics preventing us from passing the legislation that would make a meaningful difference for our working families, but that we don't even need it to begin with, and we will be stronger for it if we lead by example.
You said to the Washington Post in an interview yesterday, "I sincerely believe that getting money out of our politics is going to be the issue that unlocks everything else." Tell me a little more about that, because we spent a lot of time on the show today talking about Donald Trump and the amount of money he makes on these deals for himself and his family. Why do you believe this is as central as it is, given all the problems we've got today?
Well, first, let's talk about Medicare for All, right? I saw that the policy director for the National Nurses United spoke a few weeks ago about the concern that they're having for members of Congress that are co-sponsors of legislation like Medicare for All, while also taking campaign donations from the very health insurance companies that would be effectively legislated out of existence. So it calls into question what kind of relationship and what kind of motivation are these donations playing in the roles of our members of Congress. And at the end of the day, if you were taking money from the very interests and the very corporations that don't want to see this kind of legislation passing, what we're finding is that sometimes it's not an immediate quid pro quo that these donations are resulting in. Sometimes it's that a seat is just being kept warm and legislation is not being progressed and fought for in a really meaningful way. And so when it comes to things like Medicare for All or universal child care, the fight against private equity when it comes to housing, all of these issues can be traced back to the fact that there is so much corporate money and so much special interest money to the point where they can get lobbyists in there and get a bill passed with a 70% chance of that passage, where an everyday working American with the support of 80% of the American electorate only has a 30% chance of getting a bill passed. That's not a democracy. That is an oligarchy. And if we have any chance of, beating back Trump, if we have any chance of taking care of the conditions that led to his rise in the first place, we have to address corruption in our government, and our party is poised to be able to lead by example.
I want to quote something that you said during a speech in mid-May. obviously before your victory, about the basics of your ideology. I want to dig into it a little bit with you. You said every single issue that I looked at where we thought there was a problem that was persisting, we already figured out the solution a long time ago. You solve homelessness by giving people housing. You solve hunger by giving people food. You solve health care by going to a single-payer system. Now, I'll just tell you my bias here. I grew up in Canada where, like every other developed country, has universal health care. But tell me about this, because there are some who would paint you and other DSA members as radicals. You're trying to make the argument that this is common sense.
It is common sense, right? If you look at the data, if you look at the research, it is cheaper to house someone than to leave them homeless. It is cheaper to heal someone and give them treatment than it is to let them get sick and to deal with getting the last minute, excruciating treatment at the very end of their sickness. It is cheaper to give our kids the highest quality education and give them the opportunity to thrive with the best opportunities in their futures. All of these things not only pay for themselves, not only are pragmatic and economic, it's just also the right thing to do, right? We are embarking on the 250th anniversary of this nation's founding. And this is a promise that we all made to one another, right? We, the people, and our obligation to delivering on life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for every single American in this country. That should include the basic necessities of housing, healthcare, nutritional food, public education, all of which are programs that we've already figured out how to get done. We already have the popular support among the voters across this country, but especially among the base of this party. What we don't have is the political will to get it done. And the case that I'm making is that we have to get the money out of our politics. We have to root out that corruption so we can get to the good work of governing and legislating and actually fighting for the working families of this country.
So primaries are about people challenging each other, and somebody wins, somebody loses. Are you worried about the friction and the division that people are talking about in the Democratic Party, or are you now the Democratic nominee and you go forward with that in largely in unity with your colleagues? Obviously, this issue of corporate PAC money is a big issue for you, but are you going to move forward as a Democrat in concert with everyone else, or will this sort of fight with the party animate things between now and the election?
I'm a proud Democrat, right? The things that we have accomplished as a party are the things that are in the basis of our values of fighting for working families. I sincerely believe that the big tent that we have, the diversity and the thought and the ideas that we have is where we find our strength. The debates that we are going to engage in, the conversations that we're going to have about the solutions that we can unite on to make sure that we're delivering for the working families in the state and across the country are the ones that I look the most forward to, because at the end of the day, we have a fascist in the White House. We're fighting authoritarianism right now, and we have so much work to do to unite and make sure that we are combating this rising authoritarianism, that we're combating the corruption that finds itself the most in the Republican Party. And I look forward to doing that together with my Democratic colleagues.
Melat Kiros, great to meet you. Thank you for joining us, and congratulations again. Melat Kiros is the Democratic nominee for Congress in Colorado's 1st congressional district.